That's me started recording now.
Okay, convener.
Right, thank you. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Development Standards this morning. Do you have any apologies?
Yes, convener, from Councillor Cheap.
Item 2 on the agenda, declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest?
Councillor Moore has indicated he wishes to speak.
Yes, thank you. I have an interest in item 7, report 25120, the land east of Summerhill House. I have received a number of emails regarding the issue. However, all I have done is acknowledge them and I have made no comment. So I will stay in the meeting and vote.
I have had emails as well, but have not responded to them regarding agenda 7 on the agenda.
Okay.
I think probably all of us have had these emails.
Probably.
Well,
And I haven't responded.
Declare an interest en bloc.
No, I haven't responded. I just ignored them. I have no interest to declare.
Okay.
I think
Any declarations of interest? Sorry,
I
sir.
think if we go back to item 7 and for declarations for item 7, convener, if there is any member who wishes to declare, if they could just raise their hand and indicate that.
Okay. Any other declarations of interest? No, we'll move on to number 3 on the agenda, building warrants. The committee is asked to note that during the period of 7th of September to the 9th of October 2020, a total of 70 building warrants, 1 demolition warrant, and 14 amendments to warrant have been approved with an estimated cost of £3,413,001. Is that noted?
Noted.
Agenda item 4, delegated decisions. The committee is asked to note that during the period 7th of September to the 9th of October 2020, a total of 77 planning applications have been approved under the scheme of delegation to officers. Is that noted?
Agreed.
Well, item agenda 5, minutes of the previous meeting. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
Move on to agenda item number 6. This is a planning application for 10 affordable housing units at land south of Rose Hill Resources Centre, Fortis Road, Montrose. Could we have the slides, please? Ed, are you with us?
I am. Sorry, I was just waiting for my colleague to have the presentation ready. Are you good to go, John? Okay, thank you, convener. As you suggested, this is a planning application for full planning permission for the formation of 10 affordable housing units on land south of Rose Hill Resource Centre, Fortis Road, Montrose. Can we have the next slide, please, John? The application site, which is identified by the red polygon, is located around about 1.7 kilometres to the north of Montrose town centre. The access to the site will be taken off of the A937 Coronation Avenue, which is the main road which links Montrose to Hillside to the north. In terms of the character of the surrounding area, it is predominantly residential in nature, with residential property to the east in Charlton Park, as illustrated by the orange circle, and residential property found to the west within the Borofield housing area, as illustrated by the blue circle. There's also a resource centre to the immediate north of the site. Now, the resource centre contains plant and equipment within it which generates some noise. In that regard, the applicant has produced a noise impact assessment to identify the potential sources of noise, and that noise impact assessment identifies measures to ensure that the development could coexist with the activities in the resource centre, and mitigation is proposed in the form of an acoustic barrier projecting from the southern part of the building in an easterly direction. Can we have the next slide, please, John? So this just gives a slightly better flavour of the site. This is slightly misleading in that the line of trees shown up the right-hand side of the polygon there, the line of green trees, they were removed 5 or 6 years ago. So the site is predominantly laid out in grass at present, but there is a cluster of trees to the south of the site. Those trees, 14 or 15 cherry trees, would require to be removed to accommodate the drainage associated with the development. But in terms of the development plan position, policy TC2 of the Angus Local Development Plan is supportive of new housing within settlements where the site is not allocated or protected for another use within the plan, and in a situation where the proposal is consistent with the character and pattern of development surrounding area. In this case, the site was declared surplus some years ago, and it has no specific land use allocation or protection afforded to it in terms of the approach to the development plan. In terms of the character and pattern of surrounding area, I draw members' attention to two features. Firstly, the type of housing in the surrounding area is very much mixed. It's predominantly two-storey property, either detached, such as the housing to the east in Charlton Park, or terraced or semi-detached, such as the housing to the west within the Boroughfield area. But there's lots of two-storey houses, there's lots of bungalows, and there's also some 1.5-storey houses. So there's very much a mixed character and pattern of development to the area. The second feature which contributes to that part of Montrose is the road verge, the wide road verge, which you can see extending up towards the north. So that is a that is a distinctive feature as you leave Montrose to the north, but the development would allow for that feature to be maintained and enhanced through the additional planting alongside the road. Next slide, please, John. So in terms of the layout of the site, access will be taken from Coronation Avenue to the west. A new access, Belmouth Junction, will be formed, and suitable visibility splays would be available to the north and south. The road service has viewed the proposal in terms of road traffic and pedestrian safety and is satisfied with the arrangements proposed and in terms of the impacts on the public road network. In terms of the layout of the site, the housing block shown by the blue circle is the terrace row of 6 one-bedroom properties. They would have garden ground to the rear and would address the public of a newly formed public access to the south of the site. Moving to the east, as shown by the green circle, there will be two-bedroom semi-detached units formed in that area, again overlooking the road with private amenity space to the east. And moving to the orange circle, finally, 2 3-bedroom houses will be formed to the south of the site with a large amenity area to the rear. The development would make connections to the existing footpath network, which is located along the east side of the site, and also connections to the footpath network along Coronation Avenue to the west. There will be spaces for 16 car parking spaces will be provided within the site, and new planting would be installed to integrate the development into the wider area. Now, the site is not located in an area which is subject to surface, coastal, or flooding from river sources. The information submitted of the application suggests surface water could be dealt with in the site with only foul drainage going into the public sewer. Next slide, please, John. This is a landscaping plan for the site. Sorry, this is a slightly different orientation. Coronation Avenue is located at the bottom of the slide here, which is on the west side of the site. But the 3 features I would draw members' attention to is the orange squiggly line adjacent to the road would be a new wildflower meadow, which would enhance the biodiversity value of that road verge. In addition to that, new tree planting would be formed as shown by the blue circle and the orange circle on the west side of the houses and to the northeast corner of the site, and seating areas would be formed between the public road and the houses and at the end of the cul-de-sac on the east side of the site. The third feature in terms of landscaping would be the garden boundaries of the proposed houses would be screened by new hedge planting. So all of these features together would ensure that the development would integrate reasonably well to the surrounding area and would also enhance the biodiversity value of the site, which is currently quite limited in terms of the majority of the site being laid in mown grass. Next slide, please, John. So just 3 slides just to show members the house types which are proposed. This is the 2-storey 1-bedroom flat terrace row that would be located along the north of the site. Ridge would run parallel to the street, very much in keeping with the type of terrace properties found within the wider area. Next slide, please, John. So this is the 2-bedroom house type located in the northeast corner. Again, 2-storey overlooking the newly formed street, providing natural surveillance of the parking areas. This type of house has a small projecting front porch. But again, the design is very much typical of those found within the wider area. Next slide, please, John. And finally, this is the larger house type. This is a 3-bedroom unit with a 2-story gable projecting forward. Again, it just marries into the design theme in terms of the material palette used to what's proposed elsewhere within the site. Next slide, please, John. So bringing matters together, the application is considered to comply with the relevant policies of the development plan. The application is before members because there is one objection from a household on Charlton Park, and members may be able to make out the blue circle just below the text box there. That's the location of the house that's just made representations. Now, those representations or those concerns are twofold: impacts on the privacy and amenity of Charlton Park, and concerns about the seating areas proposed and the potential for antisocial behaviour. In terms of impacts on the privacy and amenity of Charlton Park, inevitably the site would accommodate new housing where there's currently none, so there would be some impact on Charlton Park. But the council has published standards in terms of distances between windows and distance between first floor overlooking and boundaries, and the development is in accordance with those standards. So while there would be some impact on the amenity of the adjacent property, those impacts are not unacceptable when assessed against council guidance. In terms of the second concern raised by that household, we've worked with the applicant to make some changes to the seating areas proposed. So there's now seating proposed to the south of the site where it would benefit from surveillance from the road, and at the end of the cul-de-sac proposed as part of the scheme, so it would benefit from some surveillance from the proposed houses. So we've listened to that concern and we've made changes to try and address the matters that are raised by the third party. Now, since the report was originally published, there was a surface water flooding event in Alton Way, which is around about 450 metres to the west of the site within the Boroughfield housing area. So we've discussed the impact of that, the impact of this development on that issue, and whether this development would make that situation worse. Now, Scottish Water was consulted on the application and is satisfied, noting that the development would deal with surface water within the site, that this would only have a foul input into the public sewer. And Scottish Water consider the impact on the flooding situation at Alton Way would be a negligible impact. Sorry, I'm hearing an echo at the moment, sorry. We've also discussed the matter with the road service, and the road service has confirmed that decisions on the capacity of the public sewer to accommodate new development are matters for Scottish Water. Roads has advised that there are localised flooding issues at Alton Way and that there are concerns about the impact new development may have on that area. However, Roads notes that Scottish Water has offered no objection to this planning application, and any connection from the development to the public sewer would require a separate consent from Scottish Water. On that basis, the road service does not object to the application. Government has produced guidance in terms of Planning Advice Note 79, which relates to water and drainage, and that guidance is quite clear. It indicates that where an applicant has stated their intention to connect to the public sewer or Scottish Water's network, and Scottish Water has not objected to the application, there should be no barrier to granting planning permission in relation to water or wastewater infrastructure. So we have reviewed the position in light of the recent flooding event in Alton Way. We've discussed the matter with Roads, with Scottish Water, and Scottish Water considers the impact of this development on the public sewer and on the potential to increase flooding in Alton Way would be a negligible impact. The application would provide much needed new affordable homes in Montrose and complies with relevant policies of the development plan, and on that basis is recommended for conditional approval.
Right, thank you, Ed. Any questions to the officer?
Yeah.
Councillor Moore?
Thank you, Convener. I've got a few questions, I'm afraid. In 8.10, it says about losing trees. And you've said, Ed, that there were 14 or 15 to lose. How many replacements are we getting?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Councillor Moore. The precise details of the landscaping arrangements aren't actually provided with the application, but members will note we propose a planning condition so we could secure precise details of that, and we would ensure that there would be suitable compensatory planting in the new development.
Yeah, so I would hope it would be on a one-to-one basis. And going to the conditions, condition 1A about the acoustic barrier, what happens if it doesn't work?
Well, I suppose there's two advantages here. The council obviously owns the site to the north, but the conditions designed in a way where it requires that both the acoustic barrier to be formed and to be fully tested before the houses are occupied. So that would need to be, any issues with that would need to be fully resolved before the houses can be occupied.
Right, and in
But the
one,
council's in control of the site, so if there are any issues, it is in a position to deal with those issues.
right, in 1D, it refers to the management and maintenance and a scheme to be put in place. Who's responsible for that scheme?
Well, we believe it's likely that the scheme will be an Angus Council development, so the housing service would basically be responsible for that scheme. But obviously, that the condition allows for the applicant to put forward an arrangement. So, provided that arrangement is suitable and deals with the ongoing maintenance, there are different options that would be available.
Right, and in condition 3, now my training was that you had to be precise and it had to be enforceable. And we're talking about to people on modest incomes. What is a modest income?
So that is actually defined in the supplementary guidance. I can't tell you precisely what the modest income is because obviously that figure evolves over time with inflation, things like that, but it is defined. So in terms of the legality of the condition, it is sufficiently precise because we have a measure in council guidance that deals with what a modest income is.
Right, and the last question you'll be pleased to hear refers to the trees on the plan. I'm just trying to get down to it. On page 25, it's referring to decorative trees and shrubs, and a group of trees, priority will be given to biodiversity friendly trees. Can we specify that these must be native species?
Certainly, that's something officers can take account of when they're discharging the condition. But in experience, it tends to be native trees that are the most beneficial to biodiversity.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Moore, thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, brazen duff.
No other questions to the officer?
Yep. Yes, convener. I've got my hand up.
Oh, sorry, convener. Sorry, I hadn't realised I was muted there. Councillor Braze and Councillor Duff.
Councillor Duff.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Yeah, I'm glad that Mr. Taylor has kind of addressed the small concerns I had with this development, which was the long-standing flooding issues in Alton Way. And obviously we've involved Scottish Water, who are the relevant authority, and I take note of the fact that we're essentially splitting the foul drainage with the surface water drainage. So I think we have to take Scottish Water's reassurance that these additional houses will have no impact or minimal impact on the flooding issues. Because I think, there has been a concern about flooding in Burrowfield, and, when there's very heavy rain, I think we do get sewage appearing in the street, which is obviously not desirable.
So
But yeah,
Duff, what's your question?
my question really is, I think is that your understanding, Mr. Taylor, that we're saying that the water, these houses will have a negligible effect on the drainage problem? I think that was just to confirm that with you.
Yeah, that's correct, Councillor Duff. Scottish Water's original response had no objection. Actually, the flooding event happened, and we went back to Scottish Water, discussed specifically that event, and asked them to comment on. Yes, we went to Scottish Water and discussed that matter, but they were satisfied that this development would have a negligible impact on flooding in Alton Way, and you're indeed correct. Surface water will be managed within the site. It would only be foul drainage that would connect to the network.
Okay, thanks very much indeed for that. Thank you.
Councillor Brace, question?
Yes, thanks, convener. I had a few questions, but they've mostly been answered. I would like to ask just a wee bit more about this wildflower meadow, because I do have a few concerns about this. These areas, while they can look very attractive, they do require a fair bit of maintenance. And I know you did answer something about maintenance to Councillor Moore, but could you maybe just give me a bit of reassurance about the maintenance of the wildflower area? Thank you.
Sure. Certainly wildflower areas need a specialist form of maintenance, in the sense that in order to maximise the biodiversity value, you have to be quite careful how often you cut. But the precise details of that will be designed by our Park Service, and there's a planning condition attached. So we would take advice from the experts when we discharge that condition.
Okay,
Any other questions to the officer? There's no other questions to the officer. We also have Eleanor Kepaleva, if that's the correct way, on to answer questions on behalf of the applicant, if there's any questions to Eleanor. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Eleanor, are you there?
Hello?
Hello, yes.
Hello, yes, thank you.
Okay, any questions to Eleanor?
Convener, Councillor Duff has indicated he has a question.
Councillor Duff?
Councillor Duff, you're muted, sorry.
Mute.
That's
Can
it.
can you just confirm what form of heating will be used in those houses?
Yes, it's gas heating, individual boilers in each property.
Okay, thanks very much. Thank you.
No problem.
Any other questions?
No, Convener.
No other questions, Eleanor. Thank you, Eleanor, for that.
No problem.
Move on.
Sorry, Convener, Councillor Moore.
Councillor Moore.
Thank you for being here for us. What environmental impact do you think these houses will have? What have you done to mitigate the carbon footprint?
The housing is designed to a high standard. Well, my majority of our housing designed to the same standard. So we've carried out calculations as a part of sub-calculations for each property, and as a result, they all meet the requirements by building standards. So the carbon emission calculations were part of the overall sub-calculations provided to building control as part of our building warrant application.
Yeah, I'm just wondering what you've done to try in the way of insulation, solar panels, rainwater recycling, etc. What have you done to try and reduce the carbon footprint?
We are using solar power in these developments wherever possible. Each house will benefit from solar panels installed on the roofs of the houses. We unfortunately are unable to use the rainwater because for safety reasons, housing department is it is not prepared to install water butts in the private houses, considering they could be accessed by young children and it could be a health hazard. So unfortunately on this item, we're not providing facilities for use of rainwater. But solar power on every project, whenever possible, when orientation of the houses proves efficiency, we do use solar panels.
Thank you.
Thank you, Eleanor.
No
Anybody
problem.
else? Questions to Eleanor?
Councillor Brace, Convener.
Councillor Brace?
Yes, thank you very much, Convener, and thank you, Eleanor. I wondered if consideration had been given to using air source heat pumps in this development.
On this development, no, we haven't. However, it has been given on the previous project, as far as I know, and it wasn't considered as efficient or worthwhile doing on the previous project. But as far as I know on this one, no.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Any other questions to Eleanor? No other questions. Thank you, Eleanor, for answering those difficult questions.
Thank you.
Move on to comments at this stage. Any members of the committee have comments?
Councillor Duff, convener.
Councillor Duff?
Yeah, thanks, convener. Yeah, I'm quite happy to see this development. I think the last council housing built in Montrose was the Warren Gardens in 2012-13. So it's the first in 7 years. So 10 units or 10 units, very welcome. And very pleased to see it. I think my concerns about flooding have been adequately addressed by Mr. Taylor and Scottish Water, and I'm certainly very pleased to see this going ahead. I've been critical of the council's performance in terms of house building over the last 2 or 3 years. This is a small development, but nonetheless very welcome.
Any other comments?
Councillor Sturrock, convener.
Councillor Sturrock?
Yeah, thank you, convener. Yes, I too welcome this development and all the questions that have been satisfactorily answered. So thank you very much. I support the development.
Councillor Brown, did I see your hand up?
Yes, the noise, the impact of noise. This is not a factory. I worked at the one in Forfar for over 25 years. I mean, there'll be noise from the north of the centre, but I can't see there being factory noise. There might be noise when they're outside at break times, things like that, but noise, we'd be speaking about, you know, industrial noise, which I can't see there ever being.
Great, thank you, Councillor Brown. Any other comments?
Councillor Brace, convener.
Councillor Brace?
Yes, I too think this is a good development and the houses will be welcome in Montrose. I'm glad that there is a great consideration being put into the biodiversity on the site, and also that the houses will have a renewable element to them. It would, however, be good to see a wee bit more of that sort of thing in our own Angus Council developments, but of course that's not a particular requirement for this application. So yes, all good really. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Brace. Any other comments?
Councillor Moore, convener.
Councillor Moore?
Yes, thank you, convener. Yeah, I welcome this. I welcome all the affordable housing. I always prefer that if we're getting affordable housing, that the council keeps control, because you provide the first house affordably and then people sell it on at market price. There is that risk, which is why I prefer the council to retain it, because then we can control the fact that it is going to be affordable. However, 10 houses, some 2-3 beds, which will be good for families, you know, it's well worth supporting, and let's just tell them to get on with it.
Thank you. Any other comments?
Councillor King, convener.
Councillor King?
Yes, thank you, convener. I would just point out to Councillor Moore, it's several years now since the Scottish Government stopped the sale of council houses just because of the very reasons you're talking about.
Good point, Councillor King. Thank you. Any other comments? No other comments. I'm going to move this, Councillor King. We'll let him come back. Okay, I'll just move on then. Well, I'm delighted to see this application coming for Montrose, and I'm going to move and approve this application with the conditions as attached. Is that agreed?
Agreed.
So therefore, planning application 19/000943 is hereby approved with the conditions attached. Thank you. Move on to item number 7. This is a pre-application notice for 32,000 birds capacity free-range hen sheds and associated infrastructure land east of Summerhill House, Gardyne, Guthrie, Forfar. I think we've slides on this. Ed?
Thank you, convener. Thanks, John. So this is, as you suggested, this is a proposal of application notice. So not a planning application, but it's an opportunity for officers to present a likely future planning application to members and to discuss what are likely to be the key issues associated with that application for the applicant then to address in any subsequent planning permission. In this case, the proposal of application notice relates to the erection of 2 32,000 capacity free-range hen sheds and associated infrastructure on land east of Summerhill House, Gardyne. Could I have the next slide, please, John? Thank you. So the site's located around about 3.8 kilometres to the southeast of Letham, almost sort of halfway between Letham and Freakham, but to the south slightly. It's located around about 1 kilometre to the north of the Cononsythe Crossroads. Now, access to the site will be taken from the B967, which is the road which links Freakham to Dundee, and then turning on to the unclassified road which links Pressac to Cononsythe. So the roads in the surrounding area, particularly close to the site, well, the B road itself, the access to the site would be close to it, quite a difficult junction, and the roads certainly in the surrounding area are rather narrow. So that's one of the key issues for this application, and one of the matters officers have already gone back to the applicant with is a need to for the application to be accompanied by a thorough assessment of impacts on the road network and any necessary mitigation measures. Can we have the next slide, please, John? So this gives it a wee bit more flavour of the location of the site. It's located, or it will be located on agricultural land, but there are a number of residential receptors close to the site, and this is the type of proposal that could result in issues in terms of odour, smell and air quality. So there are also issues that officers have raised with the applicant that they would need to thoroughly consider as part of any supporting information for the planning application, including the environmental impact assessment report that's required for development of this scale. Can I have the next slide, please? And finally, this slide shows the position of the site on agricultural land. That's another one of the matters raised, impact on agricultural land. And members may also note from this slide the position of residential receptors just to the west of where the proposed sheds would be. Officers have identified in sections 4.4 and 4.5 of the report what they consider to be the key material planning considerations which would be relevant to the assessment of a planning application. But in line with established procedure, members are invited to identify any additional material planning considerations they would wish to see addressed.
Is that you, Ed?
It is.
Yes. Okay. Well, I'll throw it open to the members of the committee. Is there any issues that you'd like considered at this stage? It's just pre-application, but
Councillor Dunno, convener, and Councillor Moore have their hand raised.
who was first?
Councillor Dunno.
Councillor Dunno.
Thanks, convener. I know this is just a pre-application. I would like to know, it's obviously it's going to be hens that are going to be used for actually, you know, consuming hens. It's not going to be an egg farm. It's basically going to be for hens. Where is all the actual waste going to go from the actual hens? Obviously, there's going to be a lot of hens, and what's going to happen to all the waste? That's my concern. I mean, will it be taken away from the site, or will it be buried in the site? I just have concerns about where the waste is, because obviously there's going to be a lot of waste.
Sure. So my understanding is the application does relate to egg production rather than for the consumption of the animal for food. In terms of the matters about waste, you're quite correct. And that is one of the matters that the applicant's scoping opinion suggests that they will consider in the environmental impact assessment that they'll do in support of the application. So I don't have an answer to that question just now, but certainly the point of this stage is to identify what we consider to be the key issues, and that is one of the issues that will be raised in the feedback officers give to the applicant, and they'll then need to include that information in any subsequent planning application submitted.
Yeah, that would be good. Obviously, as well, there would need to be a bit of storage for food as well. I mean, there's going to have to be a lot of food storage as well. And that's going to have to be carefully stored as well as the waste. So it's all these things that probably come back to us at a later date. Thank you.
Can I make a point there? The waste in the chicken sheds have high manurial value and put back onto the soil, and probably neighbouring farmers will probably take up on some of it, but it does have a high manurial value. So just line on that, Councillor Dunno.
That'd be good.
Councillor Moore, were you next?
Yes, thank you, convener. It's just a query in paragraph 3.4. And I'm just wondering, it says the applicants indicated a copy of the plan was served on Freakham District Community Council. Now, just for accuracy, when was that served?
Thank you, Councillor Moore. You're quite correct, and I intended actually to say in my presentation that the applicants indicated that, but obviously at this stage, the Freakham Community Council, my understanding is that is not a constituted body at present. Now, as a result, officers have suggested that a consultation be undertaken with Letham and District Community Council, but it is obviously possible that Freakham could constitute in the period before a planning application is submitted, in which case a notice would need to be served. But as you suggest, it's not possible to serve a notice on the community council that doesn't exist.
Yeah. Is there any way to post this plan in the Freak Hub? Because a lot of people do use the Freak Hub and the message does go out from there.
Certainly we can, at this stage, what we're suggesting to the applicant is public consultation arrangements. So we would certainly be happy to go back to the applicant and suggest they do some publicity of an event in that premises to let people know that this is coming.
Thank you.
Any other issues, members of the committee? Don't take note of it at the moment. Councillor Dunner, you're coming back again?
Could I come back just to say, convener, that this would be an ideal opportunity, if it's going to be egg production that we're looking at, an ideal opportunity for a community project for children, for schools, to see actually where their eggs come from. Some educational facility built into this would be ideal.
Okay, that's noted. Any other comments or questions? Or
Councillor Nicholl, convener.
Councillor Nicholl.
Thank you, convener. I am a member of the National Farmers Union, and farmers in Great Britain have a high standard of welfare for their livestock, and I have no worries with this application. I think it will be brought to the high standards of the farming in Great Britain.
Okay, Councillor Nicholl. Anything else that members want to bring forward at this stage?
Councillor Brace, convener.
Councillor Brace.
Yes, when it comes to the application, some of the things I would be looking for revolve around the whole environmental aspect of this operation, proposed operation, and I would be looking for a high standard of mitigation concerning the development in that regard. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Anything else at the moment?
No.
Well, there's nothing else at the moment. We'll leave it at that in the meantime. And Ed, you've heard what the committee have said at the moment anyway, and it's plenty of time for any other members to put any queries in directly. Thank you.
Noted.
So we'll move on to agenda item 8. Enforcement notice, appeal decision at land south of 65 Dundee Street, Carnoustie. Kate, can you come in on this?
Certainly can, convener, absolutely. Bear with me. The case relates to the erection of a telecoms mast, and this has been done under the provisions of the General Permitted Development Order, which allows the siting of such apparatus in emergency circumstances without the need for a planning application, without the need for planning permission, for a period not exceeding 18 months. So in July of 2018, a mast was erected to the south of Dundee Street in Carnoustie under those provisions. And given the timescale set out in that general development order, the mast should have been removed by January of this year. The operator was provided a period of time after January of this year to remove the mast, but despite advice from officers that the site wouldn't be considered appropriate in the longer term, an application to site the mast at this location for a further 12 months was validated by us on the 4th of March 2020. At that time, the applicant indicated that there was going to be construction of a permanent mast at another site where planning permission had been secured that would allow the removal of the mast in Carnoustie at Dundee Street. And on that basis, it was agreed that the determination of the application that had been submitted on the site would be delayed. The alternative mast had been constructed or was constructed, but the applicant then indicated that it actually didn't meet their coverage requirements. So in the absence of any significant progress on removing the mast at Dundee Street, we served an enforcement notice on the 27th of July of this year. That notice required the removal of the apparatus within 16 weeks of that notice coming into effect. The applicant appealed that enforcement notice, and this report sets out the reporter's conclusions in dismissing that appeal. So therefore, the enforcement notice as served has come into effect, and the apparatus must be removed early in the new year of 2021. Just for information, the applicant has also now withdrawn the earlier planning application, and they have confirmed that they will remove the mast in the required timescales. But we will, of course, continue to monitor the site to ensure that that is the case.
Right, thank you, Kate. Is that noted?
Noted.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's the end of our agenda for today, and I'd just like to thank you all for turning up. I'm sitting looking out the window here and see there's clouds coming along and wondering how long we're going to get at the potato lifting today. That's one of my worries as well. So thank you for all for turning up, and thanks to the officers as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, convener.
All right, see you guys.